Ever feel like you can tackle an English novel, no problem, but then you put on a movie, and it's like everyone's speaking a different language?
Happens all the time, right?
Yeah, and it's so frustrating, because your reading's fine, but then bam, native speakers, and it's like hitting a wall.
Exactly.
That's exactly what we're diving into today. Why understanding native English speakers can be such a struggle, even when your reading skills are solid.
Awesome.
We've got some really cool material you guys shared called Text Yang Ditimpil Khan. We're going to unpack it,
Okay.
figure out the core reasons behind this disconnect, and more importantly, give you some solid strategies to boost that listening confidence.
Sounds good.
So, this feeling, it's not unique. It's a pretty common frustration for English learners.
Yeah.
You spend all this time with grammar books, vocabulary lists, really getting comfortable with written English.
Yeah.
And then you encounter spoken English, a casual conversation in a podcast, whatever, and like, whoa, where did this language come from?
Right. It's like learning a whole new language almost. And the thing is, you've already invested so much time and effort, it can be really discouraging.
Totally. And you start questioning, like, is there something wrong with me? Am I not cut out for this?
Absolutely.
But the answer is no, not at all. It's just that spoken and written English, while related, they have their own quirks. It's not just about pronunciation or accent. It's deeper than that.
Deeper, yeah.
The Text Yang Ditimpelkin material really highlights this. Like, let's take a basic example. We all know I am going to. It's clear. It's straightforward in writing.
Yeah.
But in spoken English, how often do you actually hear that full phrase?
Never, pretty much.
Pretty much never. It morphs into I'm gonna. Right.
Yeah.
It's faster. It's smoother. 3 words compressed into 2 sound units. If you're not expecting it, it can throw you off completely.
Absolutely. And that's just one tiny example.
Yeah. Think about it. It happens in other languages too, right?
It does, yeah. Contractions, reductions, they're everywhere. It's how we make speech efficient.
Exactly. And then there's connected speech. This one's huge.
Oh, yeah.
You see a phrase on paper like, what do you mean? Nice and neat.
Right.
But when a native speaker says it,
It's more like, what do you mean?
what do you mean? It's all blended together. Those distinct words, they sort of melt into each other.
They do, and it's not just that the sounds blend together. The rhythm changes, the emphasis shifts. Sometimes entire syllables disappear. It's fascinating, actually.
Right. And think about it from a native speaker's perspective. They're not dissecting each word. They're processing the meaning as a whole chunk.
Exactly. It's like they're reading a sentence, not individual words. That's why they don't even notice those subtle changes.
And this is where it gets even trickier. You throw in informal expressions, slang, the everyday language that doesn't show up in textbooks.
Oh, yeah.
Our source gives a great example. Want to grab a bite.
Classic.
You might understand want to and eat something. But that whole phrase, in that context, it can feel like a code you haven't cracked yet.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is that native speakers rely heavily on context to understand these phrases. They don't even think about it. So while want to grab a bite might not make sense in isolation, if you hear it after a meeting, let's say.
It clicks.
It clicks instantly. It's obvious they're talking about getting food.
See, that's the thing. As learners, we're often still at the stage of decoding individual words, really focusing on each piece.
Yeah, it's a natural part of the process.
And we miss those crucial contextual cues that make spoken language so rich.
Exactly.
All right, so we've talked about the words themselves, but there's another layer of complexity. The speed.
Oh, yeah.
The speed at which native speakers deliver those words.
It can be overwhelming, right? Especially when you're not used to it.
It's like a fire hose of sound sometimes. And it's not just about speed. It's also the rhythm and the stress patterns, the way they emphasize certain syllables, the rise and fall of their voice.
The music of the language.
Exactly, the music of the language. And that music conveys meaning. It carries emotion, sometimes even grammatical information. The same word can sound completely different depending on how it's stressed.
Think about the word present.
Yeah, present.
If you stress the first syllable, present, it's a noun, a GIF.
Right.
But if you stress the second syllable, present, it's a verb, the act of giving something.
It's amazing how much information is packed into those subtle shifts.
It is, and it's something that learners often miss because they're so focused on the individual words that they don't pick up on those nuances.
Right. And then, of course, we have to talk about accents.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
I mean, this is a whole world unto itself. Our source mentions American, British, Australian accents, but those are just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Absolutely. Within each of those categories, there are countless regional variations. You can travel 100 miles in some places and encounter a completely different accent.
And it's not just pronunciation. Some accents use sounds that doesn't even exist in other languages.
Exactly. So if you've never encountered that sound before, your brain doesn't even know how to process it. It's like trying to see a color that's outside the range of human vision. You literally can't perceive it.
It's like your ears are missing the right equipment to even pick it up.
Right. And that makes it incredibly difficult to understand words that use those sounds. You might hear something that sounds vaguely familiar, but it just doesn't click.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So we've got all these factors at play: contractions, connected speech, slang, speed, rhythm, stress, and accents. It's a lot to take in.
It is, yeah. And I think this leads to a very important point that our source touches on: exposure.
Right, exposure.
A lot of traditional English learning focuses, understandably, on reading and writing. You need that foundation. But it can sometimes leave you underexposed to the realities of spoken English.
The wild, untamed world of spoken English.
Exactly. You spend all this time with textbooks and grammar rules, which are great, but then you get out into the real world and bam, it's a whole different ballgame.
It's a whole different ballgame. Okay, so we've painted a pretty clear picture of the challenges. But here's the good news. Tex Yang Di Templecan also gives us a bunch of practical strategies to start bridging that gap.
That's the important part.
Absolutely. And the first one is, well, it might seem obvious, but start slow and clear.
Makes sense, right? Don't try to run before you can walk.
Exactly. The source recommends things like audiobooks or news podcasts specifically designed for English learners, like BBC Learning English or VOA Learning English.
Yeah, those are great resources.
They speak slower, they enunciate more clearly. It lets your ear gradually get accustomed to the sounds of English.
It's like starting with a gentle warm-up before you hit the gym. You don't want to jump straight into the heavy lifting.
Perfect analogy. Another cool technique is shadowing. Have you ever tried this?
Oh yeah, shadowing's great.
So for our listeners who haven't, what does it involve?
Basically, you listen to a short piece of audio, a sentence or two, and then you immediately repeat it, trying to match the speaker's pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm as closely as possible.
So it's not just about understanding the words, it's about mimicking the way they're said.
Exactly. It forces you to pay attention to those subtle details that we talked about earlier, the stress patterns, the connected speech, the way words flow together.
It's like training your mouth to do the same gymnastics as the native speaker.
Exactly. And it can feel really weird at first, but it's surprisingly effective.
I bet. The source also talks about ear training with diverse accents. This is crucial, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to encounter so many different accents in the real world.
Oh, absolutely. And the more you expose yourself to different accents, the better your brain becomes at recognizing the patterns and decoding the sounds. It's like training your ear to be flexible.
Like building those neural pathways.
Exactly. And there are so many resources out there for this. YouTube is a goldmine. You've got language learning apps, podcasts from different countries.
It's like a buffet of accents.
It is. And the more you sample, the better your ear will become at distinguishing those subtle differences.
Okay, but listening is only half the battle. You also need to understand what you're hearing.
Right. Comprehension is key.
The source talks about active listening techniques. What are some of your favorites?
Well, the key here is to engage with the material. Don't just passively listen. Try to summarize what you're hearing, either mentally or by jotting down a few notes.
So force yourself to process the information.
Exactly. It helps you focus on the main ideas and not get bogged down by individual words that you might not understand.
Right, because it's easy to get stuck on those unfamiliar words and lose the thread of the conversation.
Absolutely. Another good technique is to ask yourself questions as you listen. What's the speaker's main point? What evidence are they using to support their argument? What's the overall tone of the conversation?
Those are great tips. I also love the advice on using subtitles strategically.
Oh yeah, subtitles can be a double-edged sword.
They can be, right? Because it's tempting to just leave them on all the time.
It is, but it can actually hinder your listening comprehension in the long run. The source suggests watching something first with English subtitles to get the gist of it, and then watching it again without subtitles.
So you're using the subtitles as a crutch at first, but then you're forcing yourself to rely on your ears.
Exactly. It's like training wheels for your listening skills. You use them for support at first, and then gradually wean yourself off them.
That's a great analogy. And finally, the source emphasizes the importance of listening to everyday conversations, not just formal speech like news broadcasts or lectures.
Right, real-world English.
Real-world English. Why is that distinction so important?
Because everyday conversations are where you encounter the most natural and often the most challenging forms of spoken English. Think about it. People use slang, idioms, they interrupt each other, they make jokes, they talk over each other. It's messy, it's unpredictable, and it's beautiful.
It's the real deal.
It is, and it's the kind of language that you need to be able to understand if you want to truly communicate with native speakers.
All right, so we've got a whole toolkit of strategies for boosting our listening skills. But the ultimate goal is to feel more confident in real-life situations. And for that, our source has some great advice as well.
Absolutely, and it starts with the most obvious but often the most difficult, actually talking to native speakers.
Getting out there and doing it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Join an English-speaking club, find a language exchange partner, use an app like Hello Talk or Tandem, anything that gets you practicing your listening skills in a real-world setting.
Because as much as you can practice on your own, nothing beats real-time interaction.
Right. It's like learning to swim. You can read all the books and watch all the videos, but you won't actually learn to swim until you get in the water.
Exactly. And here's a really important piece of advice from the source. Don't get hung up on every single word. It's easy to feel discouraged if you miss a few words here and there, but the overall meaning is often still perfectly clear.
Absolutely. Even native speakers don't catch every word in every conversation. The key is to focus on the big picture and not get bogged down by the details.
Trust your brain to fill in the gaps.
It's amazing how good our brains are at that. We're constantly making inferences and predictions based on the context.
And speaking of filling in the gaps, the source also recommends repetition and review. Just like you might reread a challenging passage in a book, re-listening to audio clips that you found difficult can really help solidify your understanding.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to listen to the same thing multiple times. Each time you'll pick up new details and nuances. And as you progress, gradually increase the difficulty level. Challenge yourself with faster speech, more complex vocabulary, different accents.
Keep pushing those boundaries.
Exactly. It's a process of constant learning and growth.
And finally, the source emphasizes the importance of patience and persistence.
So important.
Because learning a language, and especially honing your listening skills, it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. And it's easy to get discouraged, especially in the beginning. But the key is to focus on those small victories. Celebrate every time you understand a new word, every time you can follow a conversation a little bit better.
Those small victories add up.
They do, and they build momentum. And eventually you'll look back and realize how far you've come.
So wrapping it all up for you, our deep dive into the Texyang Ditemplakan material really highlights that understanding native speakers is achievable. It takes focused practice, it takes the right strategies, but you can do it.
And the key takeaway here is that spoken English has its own unique set of rules and patterns. Once you understand those rules, it becomes a lot easier to decode what you're hearing.
It's like unlocking a secret code.
Exactly. And the more you expose yourself to spoken English in all its forms, the more fluent you'll become in that code.
And that's the exciting part. It opens up a whole new world of communication.
Absolutely. And it makes learning English so much more rewarding.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you to chew on. Think about the different English accents you've encountered. How does your ear react to each one?
Interesting.
What specific aspects of spoken English do you find most challenging?
Good question.
And how can you use the strategies we've talked about today to target those areas and really boost your listening confidence?
A lots to think about.
Lots to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.